the question and answer edition. These episodes always make me happy because I love giving people the answers they need around HR. And I think HR is one of those topics that it's a lot of gray area. And how do I handle it? What do I do? And so I think we get a chance to do that. I love it. All right, I'll do my question first, and then we'll do yours, and then we'll do my other one.
Yes.
All right. So this is from Katharina, and she's in Pennsylvania, and she says this: I have a client, so she works as a consultant. I have a client who records payroll by the minute. They are employees who digitally go over their 40 hours by a minute or two. What's the smallest increment of time that overtime is required to be calculated? Is it 1 minute, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 15 minutes? I would like to have this client move to an agreed upon rounding of time. What is it?
Anything over 40 hours. So what's 40 hours times 60 minutes? 240 minutes. So I would say.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, 240 minutes. So let's break that down. On 241 minutes, you're in overtime. 240 and 30 seconds, I guess you're in overtime. There you go. You're going to have to pay time and a half. 45 seconds now. That is the most granular question I've ever heard. But I guess we get people that ask those questions. So yeah, 1 minute.
But I think it's an important point though, right? Because I think people are like, oh, well, it's only 5 minutes. It's only 7 minutes. Can't I just round it down to 40 hours?
No.
Yeah. If it's a non-exempt employee, they get paid for every second they work, right? And so I love that concept of hours worked, right? And so I was saying this today in my class today. One of the things is that the FLSA, when they wrote it, they said to employ means to suffer or permit to work. It's the same thing with hours work. If we suffer or permit them to work, we got to pay them, and we have to pay overtime. Anything over 40 hours federally, your state may differ. But it's a good thing. I think we have to kind of sometimes come back to these questions just to be like, oh yeah, I need to make sure that we're answering that the right way. And so it is good. Now, the beauty of this is most of us are using a third-party system that are tracking that. And so just kind of making sure that we do. So
yeah. Now, I will tell you, there are some exceptions. There are rounding protocols, and that's way too much for this Q&A right now. You'd want to get into Department of Labor, and if you have a like an ADP or a Kronos or a Paycor, Paylocity, Paychex, whatever system, some of them do allow. We used to have it where if it was at the 7 minute mark. So
the 7-8 minute rounding rule.
Yeah. So if someone swiped in like 3 minutes early, it rounded up to the top of the hour. It rounded to the nearest quarter hour. It rounded up or rounded back. And we only did that because we had one time clock and we had 50 housekeepers clocking in at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
And they weren't really working. They were all just like clocking in and meandering around, right? So that was allowed as long as you were consistent with that for everyone, for all punches. And what that ended up leading to, John, and here's something interesting, because of the round up, we literally had people standing there waiting for 7:52. Let's say they were off at 8 o'clock at night,
right,
or 5 o'clock. They would wait for 4:52, 4:53, and then they would swipe out and they would get that extra 7 minutes of pay and they would go home. And that's we're like, okay, that's not what this is meant to do. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so we went to the per minute thing. I got rid of the rounding.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 7 to 8 minute rounding rule. That's one of the reasons. The other reason, technically, when you look at the law, it says it has to benefit the employee more than it benefits the company, right? And so now you have to go back and you have to audit it and see, does it make sense, and do all that kind of stuff. We all have time clocks. Use the time clocks, right? And then if you do have a situation like Chuck where you have 50 people going through one time clock, I don't know, figure it out, come up with a plan that says, all right, we're just when you punch in, you're going to work 8 hours that day until you punch out. Don't
Yeah.
nickel and dime your employees. You're just going to get yourself in trouble.
That's a great question. I mean, seriously, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
You thought it was a simple question. We all
I
do,
did.
right?
I was like, that's the most granular question I've ever heard. But if you break it down, yeah, anything over 240 minutes in that week traditionally would be considered overtime. All right.
Yeah.
Here's my question, John, and this is from
Okay.
someone that was anonymous, and they posted this on the HR Team of One Facebook group, the HR Stories podcast, Team of HR Stories. That is it's one of our Facebook groups. And if you're not part of the HR Team of One Facebook group, you really should join. It is HR people helping HR people. And the question is, hello, how do you handle PTO fairly in terms of seniority? Is there a schedule or a policy you have for tenured employees versus new hires? And I know you did answer this to Anonymous, and it looks like you had some great interaction with them back and forth. So why don't you take this?
Yeah. And so I worked for a company where PTO, taking time off from work, was based on seniority. Right. And so if somebody had been with the company for 5 years and somebody had been in the company 3 years and they both put in for the same time, that 5-year person would get it. And right. And so that works, and it simplifies it. Everyone knows what it is. There's a benefit then to seniority, right? And so when we think about turnover and retention, it does help with retention. Oh, if I'm here for 5 years, now I get the choice of when I'm going to take my vacations off and that kind of stuff. I got a little frustrated, I would say, is because we were a 364 days a year company. I got a little frustrated because the same person would always take off between Christmas and New Year's Eve every single year. And everyone else was like, well, it's unfair. And why did they do that? And da, da, da. And I'm like, I think it's unfair too, but that was our policy. So I stayed with the policy. And so I did go to that person. I'm like, can't you give it to somebody else 1 year? And like, no, this is a privilege of mine being here for a long time, and I'm going to take it. And I get it. I get it. I don't know if there's an easy solution. I do think seniority helps with that and go, all right, this is what we're going to do. But as a big company policy, it does help a little bit with retention.
Yeah, absolutely. In the hospitality industry, we work 365, 7 days a week, that sort of thing. And it does become challenging as we get into November, December, New Year's. So one of the things we've always done is we tell people, give us your number one day off, the one you absolutely want. Is it Thanksgiving? Is it day after Thanksgiving? Is it Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day? Really, day after Thanksgiving is not a big deal, but some people it is. But then some people are like, I have to have New Year's Eve off, man. I'm partying, okay? Or I have to have New Year's day off because I'm recovering. Even if I have to work New Year's Eve, I know after that I'm going to go out and party. And so I want New Year's Day off. And we give people, that's usually how I've managed it, from theme parks to hotels, resorts, and that sort of thing. And that seems to work fairly well. But yeah, you do want to find a way to reward longevity without discouraging your new employees too. So it's a balance.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I like that concept of like, here's the major holidays. We're all going to have to be working at part of those. Which one are most important to you? I worked in the theater. I think we've talked about this on the podcast, and I worked in the theater. You don't get a day off, right?
Mm-mm.
Whether it's Christmas, New Year's, you got to work, right? There's only a limited number of people. It's not like there's going to be other people to fill in for you. And you just kind of you knew, because that was your passion and you were going to do it, that's what you were going to do. But I do think, like in hospitality and that kind of stuff, it's tough. And the company wants to be open on New Year's Eve because it's a big money maker. And to be like, okay, well, half my crew is not going to be here. And so the other part of this conversation is really, well, I have somebody that's going to be here on Thanksgiving. What are we going to do to make their experience a little bit better? We used to serve a full Thanksgiving meal to anybody that worked on Thanksgiving.
Yes, that's beautiful.
And so we would give them a little more time on their break and say, look, take 45 minutes, take an hour. We're going to give you turkey. We're going to give you stuffing. We're going to give you all that kind of stuff. New Year's Eve, I worked in the hospitality industry too. I was not in favor of this, but the general managers around giving champagne out to all the employees working, and I'm like, that's probably not a good thing. But right, kind of managing that expectation becomes really important.
Yeah. All right, John, time for one more question. What do you got?
Okay, here's the question. I know, and I want you to really think about this question. Don't jump on what you think your first answer is.
Okay.
I know part-time employees, if they earn overtime, are supposed to be paid overtime. But what if the boss is telling you they only get comp time?
Then it depends what industry or entity they work for, right? So government entities, I think even like educational entities. My daughter works for University of Tennessee, and I'm like, you work a lot of hours. You should be making more money, right? Like, dad doesn't have to support you. Oh no, I'll use all my hours for extra days, extra hours and days off. I'm like, no, you don't understand. You're 24 years old. You don't care about days off. You care about money. So,
wrong, Dad.
But if that's but if it's a normal, like regular industry outside of those two entities, yeah, part-time, full-time, seasonal, on call, it doesn't matter. You work over federally 40 hours in the week, you do have to get the overtime unless there's something I'm missing.
No, you're right. You're 100% right. And I am almost 100% sure the person asking that question was in the private sector. And so the question really is, for me, when I'm looking at that question is, how do I stand up to my boss who thinks they know, but they don't know? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that's the question. I think the underlying question for me in that question is, if your boss is saying, well, we're going to give them comp time when they should actually be getting overtime, I think the conversation where you need to have the confidence and go, no, under the Fair Labor Standard Act, we are required to pay them anytime they work over 40 hours or whatever your state law is. We cannot provide them comp time. Now, there are, as you said, right, educational government agencies. That's different. You can do it, right? It needs to be paid in time and a half increments, but you can do comp time those. But you really need to have that conversation. So, Chuck, let me ask you.
Yes.
You're a boss. You got a lot of people underneath you.
Yep.
How do you want your employees to approach you when you may be wrong?
Hey, Chuck, do you have a minute? Can I ask you a question? Can you clarify something for me? Can I ask you a question? Can you clarify something for me? Something like that, rather than, oh, if you were wrong, Chuck, be like, right away you get defensive. It's like, what? But if Ladis or Yenny come to me and they say, we have a question. I understand something this way. You understand it. Can you help me explain? I think, then they may say you're wrong. So that's how I would like it.
Chuck, I really think that's a great answer. One of the things I would suggest, and something that we did in our guide, or the HR guide to checklist, the ultimate guide to HR checklist edition, is we have how to have a difficult conversation in there. This would be a difficult conversation, and really go in there and like, hey, I want to understand why you think that. What's the reasonable basis? Why do you think that? Right. And so ask those details and say, well, I'm in this, in my resources on the Department of Labor, here's what it says about comp time. Right. And so present your argument in a clear, meaningful fashion. And don't get emotional about it. Don't be upset or feel disrespected. And in the end, when the big boss makes the big boss decision, we just have to go with it, right? And say, okay, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to write a note that I don't think it's right. We are the team at HR Stories. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you next week with another story.
Thank you for listening.